Hey friends, I'm Christy and you're listening to Rock the Damn Boat. If you've ever bitten your tongue to keep the peace or said yes when every part of you wants to say no, this one's for you. We're diving into the messy, real stuff that people pleasers like me have spent years avoiding. It's time to have the hard conversations, shake things up, and learn to stand tall even when it makes waves. It is a Sunday Shortie episode. Usually I'm really unscripted, but I had to jot down a few notes because I've had so many things happening in my mind these last few days that I was worried that I might go a little off track. One of the reasons that I'm so fired up today is because I have had a little bit of a breakthrough in my clarity and my mindset and all of the things that when you're in it and it's such a blind spot for you, it can be so hard to know exactly what you need. But I'm a firm believer that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So I'm going to share a few resources with you today and also talk you through what my retreat experience has been like, because I do have a couple of retreats coming up soon. I have been quieter than I should be about them, but that is part of this self-confidence and the mindset that I'm working through and had, like I said, a huge breakthrough. And I'm ready to tell you about it. I'm ready to talk about the retreats. So I'm excited for today's episode. Couple of things I wanted to share from a resource standpoint. Now, if you are listening to this podcast regularly, then you probably love podcast content. And you might want to know what podcasts is the podcast host listening to. There are a couple of creators who I have met recently that I want to highlight because they are really bringing some relatable content. So the first is Allison Kinsey, who has Real-Time Creator. Interestingly, Allison and I crossed paths on LinkedIn and I started reading her story, and she was laid off last year and took her severance and divided it into 12, equal payments, however she's doing it, so that she could pay herself for a year and truly take a year-long career break. She started her podcast. I love listening to it because it's short episodes similar to the Sunday Shortie. She is talking through what it looks like to have all of the same fears and apprehension, also the excitement, the things that are lighting her up. If you are here on this podcast because you are contemplating a corporate exit or what that might look like if you had a less traditional career, I would encourage you to add Real-Time Creator into your playlist as well. Now, the other one that I am listening to that I got a little bit of tough love from this past week's episode is We Know Marketing, We Promise. I met one of the co-hosts, Naoma, at the Create and Cultivate event in Austin a few weeks ago. We had a call. We talked about my brand needs for Thrive with Christy. She talked me through a lot of things that as a very early entrepreneur, I might be challenged by. And of course, mindset is one of those things that, in my experience, the more you try to overcome your mindset hurdles, the more frustrating it can be when you don't have that breakthrough. I am not a patient person. I have a desert tortoise tattooed on my leg because I need that reminder to be patient. Naoma and Kelsey have this amazing show about marketing. And this past week, their episode talked about mindset and how we can get in our own way. And I totally can relate because that is where I had my breakthrough. So let's talk about the breakthrough. I had dinner with a friend who is also self-employed. She was talking about Claude Cowork, which is a tool that I keep hearing about. I just had not used yet because I've been in a pretty intense relationship with ChatGPT and learning how to use custom GPTs. I've dabbled with Claude, but nothing serious. Once I heard about Claude Cowork and the way that my friend Beckie is using it, I was a convert. And I went over to Claude, I bought a subscription, signed up. You can integrate a lot of different apps. You can integrate your Gmail. Rather than automating every single email, I could have it help me draft emails and then it put drafts in my Gmail that were ready to send, but that I could look at, add a personal touch. Yes, it's got all the facts about the retreats or the facts about the upcoming cohort, but it wasn't necessarily trying to sell somebody it would like send them email blindly like an automation does. So my epiphany was that part of what feels so salesy to me is automation. And yes, I have some automations set up on my email, but for the most part, I want that personal touch. I am about creating connections with people. And so I don't want anything about my business to be so automated that I'm not involved with that. And I realize that as entrepreneurs scale, that personal touch goes away. Even Jess Berger talked about that in the Bundle and Joy episode, that there used to be a very high touch dog mom community. And as they grow as a brand, that's not as personal as she would like it to be, but that's what happens. And when we appreciate a brand and we want them to stay around, we don't mind if they scale because that means they're in business for the long haul, right? I wanted that human element. I want AI to help me work smarter, not harder. I didn't know how to reach out to people that felt authentic to me. So this integration with Claude was a game changer. What it takes out is having to type out the details each time. Do I want these women that I'm reaching out to come on a retreat with me? Absolutely. And it's not just about me. It's about sharing that space with other women who are going through the same thing that you might be. So that is what I loved. And that was my breakthrough. And I'm so grateful to Beckie because her giving me that real world example as a friend who is very similar to me in that regard. With her work that she does in nonprofit, she wants that personal element as well. That was huge for me. And that was this mindset block that I had that I didn't even realize I had. That what felt so salesy and inauthentic to me was being overly automated. Now I know how to use AI to streamline some activities, but still be able to put my personal touch on it. I was hiding in the background because I didn't know how to reach out, how to encourage women and let them know that I really do want you to have this amazing experience. But I was keeping it under wraps, which is crazy. But it's hard. It's hard when you go from, for me, I was selling products for the past 10 years. I was buying products for 20 years before that. So my entire career has been buying and selling, but it was commodity items and not experiences. So that is my segue into what a retreat experience looks like, because what I'm doing right now is focused on outreach to encourage women to come and either spend time with the group that's going to be in Texas in a couple of weeks or come to the Tahoe area in June, which is a 5-day retreat. So it's a bigger investment, but it's going to be just incredibly gorgeous. Tahoe in June. If you come on the retreat, it does include your transportation from Reno to the luxury Airbnb. It's a home in the mountains, and it's going to be just so picturesque. Of course, the Hideaway Ranch where we're having the Texas retreat is equally as beautiful. Tracy, the owner, her and her family are just going to be incredible hosts for that event. One of the things that surprised me in recent conversations is I know several women who are signed up who have never been on a retreat. And I think it's amazing, first of all, that they are saying yes to this opportunity for the first time. And I think it surprised me because I've been on several retreats. I've hosted several retreats. That's been part of my personal growth journey. I love the idea that someone is adding that into their toolbox because it is so hard. I mean, face it, we know it is hard to make time to do anything outside of your daily grind. So you're working, you've got kids' soccer games, you've got cooking and cleaning and all of the things that you do that make you an amazing busy woman. So the idea of taking this time out for yourself feels impossible. But what about that analogy that you have to put your oxygen mask on first? We have to remember to recharge before we get to the point of burnout. Now, that said, I also don't think retreats always have to be an escape. Maybe a retreat is a celebration, a gift to yourself. I think back to the first one that I attended in 2022. It was with my yoga teacher, Ali Van Fossen, through the Body, Mind, Soul studio. I was supposed to go to Bali with her in 2020. And of course, COVID shut the world down. So 2022 was my first opportunity to go on a retreat with Allie. I had been inspired by her to host retreats at our property in Hamilton, Texas, on our 20 acres. It was a pretty rustic retreat. I had some glamping tents and a cabin that I had finished out on the inside myself to be ready for retreats. We had a little camper, so we had space for 6 to 8 women at a time. And it was a great entry for me into hosting retreats. And a week or two after I hosted my very first one, I got to hand over the reins and just be a participant, go through yoga classes, workshops, have meals with amazing women, spend time walking and talking and getting to know women that I had only known through a Facebook community for years. Last fall, I went on my second retreat with Allie, and some of the same women were on that retreat. That was definitely more of a personal growth opportunity. I knew that I potentially was going to leave corporate, and I really wanted to go on this retreat and get some clarity around how that decision might look. And I was just looking at my journal the other morning, and I was reading through, day 1 and my reflections after our first yoga class, day 2, day 3. What did all that look like? What did I learn? The first day of the retreat, I was like, yes, I'm doing this. I'm leaving corporate. And then the second day, I was like, never mind. This is crazy. I don't know if I can do it. I left Maine with a ton of conviction to leave my corporate role in February, and I ended up leaving in November because once I knew, I knew. That retreat for me was a lot of clarity. Now, Bali, I got a do-over for Bali with a completely different group of women. I was on a podcast called How I Quit Alcohol. Oh gosh, it must have been 2021 because I had launched my book. And so I was on Danny Carr's podcast to talk about my book. I was her first American guest. She is out of Australia, and I am going to be having her on the podcast soon. Went on retreat with Danny in 2024. Now, my friend Kimberly went, and her and I got to know each other on the Pennsylvania retreat. We decided to make the brave venture across the globe to attend this retreat in Bali. We didn't know a soul. All of the women there were from Australia. They were a magical group. It was an incredible experience. It was all on this small, intimate retreat center, and it just felt like we had escaped the world for a little bit. When I think about the ones where you do get to truly escape and be in a completely different surrounding and experience and culture than you might be usually, the Bali trip really was that for me. So that was the most exotic destination I've ever had for a retreat. Now, all of that might sound terrifying to someone who has never gone on a retreat, someone who has never said yes. My training wheels for that type of experience were workshops. I would go to a workshop at a yoga studio. I got to go to one that Jen Pasteloff hosted right before her book came out, and I still love following her work. I went to a couple of workshops on women's sexuality and different things that just pushed me out of my comfort zone. Communion with other women who are going through the same things that you are, or maybe similar, different, but your mindset or your fears are the same. Those have been, for me, where the magic has happened. I believe so strongly in community. I also think that there is something to be found with that co-regulation that happens when you are with a group of people. Maybe you find that at church on Sundays. Maybe you find that with your mahjong group. Maybe you find that with other professional women through a group like Bond. I see so much value in that type of community. It's why when I typically offer my services as a coach, it's via a group cohort because I think you learn from each other. That's why I love hosting retreats, because I think that you come because you need something or you need to unlock something within yourself, but you find that support through the group. My longest standing friendships are mostly women that I have met through communities. And whether that was online or in person or on a retreat, It is through community. It is why I'm so passionate about it. So all of that to remind you that I am hosting 2 retreats, one April 17th through the 19th in Bluffdale, Texas, which is 90 minutes outside of Dallas-Fort Worth. If you're listening from DFW, 3 hours north of Austin, if you're in the Austin area. In June, we're flying into Reno, and then we're driving over to the Tahoe Donner area. So Donner Lake will be a beautiful place where we can hike, be outside. Truckee, California is a place where we can explore and do some yoga. I want to leave you with this quick little story. I've worked on my bravery for the past 8 years. I've been about to celebrate 8 years sober. And when I got sober, I started saying yes to everything. It really caught me off guard yesterday when I joined a writing workshop and we were talking about author log lines. So log lines are a way to describe your story very succinctly. On this workshop, the host was helping to dissect our log line. We had to come up with what we thought it should look like, and then she helped us identify if we had all the pieces of a log line that made it a true log line. I had raised my hand first. I had heart palpitations. I have not had heart palpitations from public speaking or anything like that in years. My heart was literally pounding in my chest. When I went off mute to start to talk with Catherine about workshopping this log line, my hands were still shaking. So even I can get really terrified about putting myself out there. And I thought, this might be what a woman who says yes to a retreat for the first time could feel like. Maybe your heart is pounding and your hands are shaking and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. But I'm going to say yes to this because otherwise I'm not going to learn. I knew that if I hadn't thrown my example out there, then I wasn't going to learn a better way to craft it. And by putting ourselves out there, we learn, yes, it's scary, might give us a little bit of heart palpitations, but these experiences help us grow. They help us identify our blind spots, just like going back to my mindset and needing to shift my mindset. I learned one little thing, one little tip in Claude, and it gave me so much relief that it made me really excited about my business again and being able to help women live out loud themselves, to help them find voice and visibility through retreats, through cohorts, through my writing. I am excited, and I needed this because I needed to bring that enthusiasm to you. And so the timing couldn't be better because 2 weeks from now, I'm going to be helping facilitate a retreat, but really we're all going to be doing the work together. So if you are interested in learning more about retreats, go to thrivewithchristy.com. The first one happens in 2 weeks, and I would love to see you there. If you join the email list at thrivewithchristy.com, you receive a $50 discount code to use on your ticket for any retreat, including the day pass. So if you're local in Texas, in the Metroplex, and you want to come down just for Saturday to the ranch and hang out and do yoga classes and learn more about the Thrive framework and commune with like-minded women, then we would love to have you for the day. So there are so many options, so many ways for us to gather in community, and I am excited to see you there. Thank you so much for listening. You've been listening to Rock the Damn Boat, a podcast produced and recorded by Christy Hughes. You can follow, subscribe on both Apple and Spotify, and your 5-star review goes a long way. Thank you so much for your support of the show.